Hello kids, interested to read another story? Now in this story there is one thing that we need to keep in mind, and that is if somebody has a certain characteristic which is very obvious, then can we make a cartoon or a caricature based on that characteristic? Let us see in this story the caricature. वैसे कैरिकेचर का मीनिंग पता है? अगर मान लो किसी का कोई प्रोमिनेंट फीचर उसकी स्केच बनाते टाइम ज़्यादा बड़ा मोटा कुछ ऐसे कर दें तो वो जो थोड़ी सी कार्टूनिश टाइप फिगर बनती है ना, उसे हम कैरिकेचर कहते हैं. सो लेट्स डेल्व इनटू द स्टोरी स्ट्रेट अवे. I was on my way from Faizabad railway station to Lucknow. As everyone knows, Faizabad is the name given in the day of the Mughal Empire to the ancient city of Ayodhya. One thing that is conspicuous is the presence of monkeys in large numbers. Conspicuous? बहुत ज़्यादा obvious. One can see thousands of monkeys performing miracles or tricks, just as you may prefer to call their antics. Antics माने हरकतें. They have a great capacity for fun and their instinctive ability to spot out a demon whom they can fight or amuse themselves with. As I had arrived at Faizabad station half an hour in advance of the time for the train's departure, I sat on a bench watching the simian hordes frolicking on the trees and on the open platform. Simian माने monkeys. तो हमारे जो राइटर हैं ये स्टेशन पे थोड़ा जल्दी आ गए, और जल्दी आ गए तो इन्होंने क्या शुरू किया? इन मंकीज को ऑब्जर्व करना. और इन्होंने क्या देखा? The monkey mothers were hugging their little ones tenderly as they descended now and then from their perches to collect half-sucked mango stones and the remainders of food from the platform. The older monkeys sat enjoying a good old scratch, while the younger fraternity sat adroitly on the thinnest boughs of neem and tamarind trees, so poised as to jump down with alacrity in pursuit of any meager spoils that may be visible. तो ये क्या कर रहे थे? बड़ी चुस्ती से अपनी टहनियों से कूद रहे थे अगर इनको कुछ भी खाने की चीज़ नज़र आ जाती. Just then, the train was announced by the ringing of the station bell. And like everyone else, my whole attention was concentrated on securing a perch for myself. I noticed that in our evolution from the quadruped to the biped stage, we have not only grown much clumsier, but also less chivalrous with each other. Quadruped and biped, जानते हैं? जो जानवर 4 limbs पर चलते हैं उन्हें quadruped कहते हैं, और जो 2 लिम्स पर चलते हैं उन्हें बाइपेड कहते हैं. अब इंसान भी माना जाता है कि पहले 4 लिम्स अपने यानी कि हाथ और पैर दोनों यूज़ करते थे चलने के लिए. सो राइटर का मानना है कि जैसे जैसे हम इवॉल्व हुए शायद थोड़े से क्लमजी बन गए. लेट्स गो अहेड विद आवर स्टोरी. I had got my reserved seat in the first class compartment easily enough, with the added advantage that this seat was by a window overlooking the platform. Some other passengers, 2 Sikhs and 3 English, joined me in the compartment, and we all began to fan ourselves with whatever came to hand to dry the copious sweat which the rising heat of the summer morning brought to our bodies. I, for one, found the torrid atmosphere of the compartment unbearable and walked out onto the platform. The English followed my example, and the shade of 2 neem trees was heavenly. For a while, I watched the third-class passengers who were busy filling up their small earthen pitchers and beautiful siphons from the water pump. Then I was fascinated by a genius of a monkey in snatching away the lion cloth of a pious Hindu who had begun to take a bath under the pump. Lion cloth माने धोती. The general amusement that was caused by this incident became hilarious laughter when, after the bather had supplicated to the monkey with joined hands, the generous simian threw down the lion cloth from the neem tree at the man's feet. It seemed as though the station master had trained the monkeys to keep good order on the platform. अब उसने धोती भी उठा ली और बाद में जब उस आदमी ने उसके आगे हाथ जोड़े तब वो धोती फेंक भी दी. While all this was going on, I noticed that a gentleman, a businessman by the look of him, clad in a white muslin dhoti, a delicate Lucknow tunic, and an embroidered boat on his head, had come up towards our first-class compartment and stood looking at the white reservation card to see if his name was on it. He recognized his name on the card and, turning, beckoned to the coolie who was following with his luggage, a big steel trunk, a hold-all and several small baskets and a brass jug. Weighed down by two enormous articles on his head, the coolie could not see the Seth. So the businessman shouted, "You, come here. Can't you see? Blind one, here." देख रहे हैं ना कितने गुस्से से चिल्ला रहा है उस बेचारे कुली के ऊपर. The coolie did not hear because he was still far away. So the Seth shouted again, lifting his hands as though in panic, "Here, hurry, the train might go." But before these words could have reached the coolie, the Seth was unnerved completely, not by any default of the coolie, but by the adroit skill of a monkey, who leapt down from the top of our compartment, snatched away the fine embroidered cap of the businessman, and got up to the neem tree. "Ah, oh, father of father, what have you done, monkey?" the businessman shouted in utter confusion, and his face was covered with perspiration. पसीने छूट गए उसके. By this time, the coolie had arrived with his luggage and was waiting for orders. But the Seth had run up towards the tree over the pump and stood threatening the monkey with his fisticuffs and loud abuse. The more he abused, the remoter the monkey became. For apparently it was the same skillful simian who had played the prank on the bather. And what added to the perplexity of the businessman was the completely unsympathetic attitude of the onlookers, who laughed out aloud or smiled as the Seth became more vociferous in his challenges, threats and imprecations. Vociferous matlab बहुत loud हो गया. "Look, people," he said, stretching his hands to the crowd with a piteous and hopeless expression on his bespectacled face. He thought that the loss of his headdress, which is the symbol of dignity in India, would be deplored by everyone, and a sentiment of solidarity will arise. But the people just turned their faces away or looked stone-faced. And the coolie made it worse by calling out, "Sethji, where? Where shall I put the luggage?" I told the coolie to put the luggage in the compartment, as I knew the Sethji had found a seat here, and I began to help him with the luggage. As I turned from the compartment, I saw that a fruit hawker had come forward pushing his little cart and was telling the Seth that he would rescue his cap. Sethji seemed to be only slightly relieved by the voluntary offer of the fruit vendor. But the vendor went ahead, nevertheless, dangling a couple of bananas before the monkey with his right hand and stretching out his left hand for the cap. The monkey seemed to hesitate, not because he was not tempted, but because there were too many people laughing and talking and offering advice, and he probably dreaded some punishment if he came down. "Ow, ow, come down," the vendor coaxed the monkey, lifting the bananas higher up even as he walked up towards the bough on which the animal was sitting. The monkey responded by climbing down cautiously to a branch which was almost contiguous to the stretched right arm of the fruit vendor. Contiguous जानते हैं? मतलब उसके हाथ के लगभग सेम बराबर डिस्टेंस पे था जमीन से. The whole platform became silent as the people who had been laughing and making odd remarks waited with bated breath for the impossible to happen. But the impossible did happen. The vendor cooed in a soft voice and gestured to the accompaniment of ow, ow, and the monkey, after looking this side and that, accepted the bargain. Taking over the bananas with his right hand while he released the wonderful embroidered cap slightly crumbled with his left hand. The Sethji rudely stretched out his hands towards the fruit vendor to receive the cap. His eyes were withdrawn as he had obviously felt very embarrassed at being made by a cruel fate the victim of what now seemed like the perverted sense of humor of the monkey, and he was eager to get into the compartment. The fruitwala came and humbly offered the Seth his cap, adding, "They are hungry, so they disturbed the passengers. He really wanted the bananas." "Acha," said the Seth surlily, and turned to get into the compartment. "Sethji, please give me the 2 annas for the bananas which I had to offer to the monkey." "Arey wah, what impudence! 2 annas if you please. For what?" Sethji shouted each word with the mingled bitterness of his humiliation at the hands of the monkey and disgust in the face of a grimy fruit vendor. देख रहे हैं आप कितना गुस्सा और डिस्गस्ट है इन सेठ जी के फेस पे, जबकि इस बेचारे फ्रूट वेंडर ने तो इनकी मदद ही करी थी. But सेठ जी, protested the vendor. हाँ हाँ सेठ साहेब, I added, please give him 2 annas. अच्छा, here is your money kuli. 4 annas for you and an anna for you, fruitwala, Sethji conceded. But sir, the kuli wailed, 2 big pieces of luggage and... Go, go, dirty fellow, Sethji thundered, turning to the kuli. And he nearly came down the eminent position he occupied in the doorway to kick the kuli away. The kuli went away, but the fruit vendor persisted, saying, "Sethji, be just. I saved your cap, the mark of your honor for you," and the businessman threw an anna towards him on the platform and went into the compartment. The guard's whistle blew and everybody boarded the train. The fruit vendor looked in from the window from outside to explore the compartment so that he could make further pleas to the Seth. And finding him settled down by the 6, he entreated with joined hands, "Sethji, do not rob the poor. I tried to. Go away. Do your work." The Sethji spat fire, while the frown on his face twisted his visage into an ugly, unhappy scowl. "Give him 1 anna more, Sethji," I said with a straight face. "You don't know, Sahib. You don't know these people. They are in league with the monkeys. Bananas are 2 apiece. Fancy asking for an anna for 1 rotten banana." This seemed to me outrageous, and I was dumb with the shock of the astute businessman's calculations. Meanwhile, the train had begun to move, and the fruit vendor first ran along with it, then got onto the footstep and clung to the window, appealing, threatening and pleading in turn. But Sethji had turned his head astray and was looking out of the window at the goods train on the other side. At length, the train passed the whole length of the platform, and the frustrated fruit vendor dropped off after hurling the spiciest abuse on the merchant. I looked at the bureaucrats. The bureaucrats looked at me, while the 6 stared at the Seth. But the Seth kept his face averted from us and kept steadily looking out of the window. सेठ जी को मालूम था कि सब उनको देख रहे हैं, तो उन्होंने लोगों की तरफ देखा ही नहीं. वो विंडो के बाहर देखते रहे ताकि लोग अपने आप थोड़ी देर में बिजी होकर के उनका ध्यान सेठ जी से हटा लेंगे। मगर क्या उन्होंने सही करा? एक बेचारे गरीब फ्रूट वेंडर ने इन सेठ जी की मदद करी और इन सेठ जी को देखिए, एहसान मानने के बजाय उसका नुकसान कर दिया। नुकसान तो करा, साथ में कितना भला बुरा भी बोला। Anyways, when the train was well out of Faizabad station, he did sit back with his face now towards the sanctum of the compartment and began to see if his luggage was all right. Then he turned round to all of us and began to justify himself. If he did not want to help me to get my cap back, he should not have offered the monkey the bananas. I did not ask him to help. The anger in my soul mounted ever as the sage seemed to cool down and assume the air of casual indifference. I felt that all the other passengers felt with the poor vendor, and that the whole amusing occasion had ended in a sour and bitter sense of grievance against the businessman. अभी तक सबने उन मंकीज़ की हरकतों को एंजॉय करा था, क्योंकि वो नटखट से किसी को छेड़ते या कुछ करते। लेकिन ये जो बिजनेसमैन इन सेठ जी ने किया था, उसके बाद से वो एंजॉयमेंट की सेंस सबकी ख़त्म हो चुकी थी और सबको एक दुख और अफसोस था उस फ्रूट वाले के लिए। I took the only revenge I could on this mean creature by drawing a caricature of him in the position in which I had seen him as he stood under the neem tree, supplicating to the monkey who had taken his cap away, and I passed it on to the other passengers. तो इन्होंने क्या करा? एक कार्टून कैरिकेचर बनाया इन सेठ जी का। किस पोजीशन में? नीम ट्री के नीचे हाथ जोड़े मंकी से विनती कर रहे हैं कि मेरी कैप वापस दे दो। The English smiled, while the six began to laugh out aloud and were all for shaming the Seth by showing the cartoon to him. But I restrained them. I think he knew from the ease which arose after the cartoon had been passed round that our relaxed smiles were the index of his discomfiture. हालांकि उन सेठ जी ने अपना कार्टून नहीं देखा, लेकिन सबके बिहेवियर से, बर्ताव से समझ तो गए ही थे कि कुछ उनके बारे में ही है। तो देखा हमने, कई बार हम सोचते हैं कि बहुत ज़्यादा ओवर स्मार्ट बन रहे हैं और किसी का नुकसान करने से हमें कोई अच्छा नहीं समझेगा, सब हमसे बुरा ही फील करेंगे और जिसका नुकसान हुआ सबकी सिंपैथी उसी के साथ रहेगी। लेकिन इसके साथ ये समझना ज़रूरी है कि जब कोई हमारी हेल्प करता है तो हमें उसके लिए ग्रेटफुल होना चाहिए है।